So how you're going to tie it together, your HTML, you've got to bring in the functions that we are going to have ourselves. So I've got my own JavaScript functions. That's that show time and show alert. The Ajax library needs to be brought in. Sorry, the JQuery library needs to be brought in. And that's that jQuery.js. And you download that, and that's what you're sort of given. You just include it in your scripts folder. You can open it up and have a look at it. They've made it so it's very, very hard to read. They've sort of obscured the code, but it's still in basic sort of JavaScript. So all the functionality's in there. And then we just do like we did last week and have in this case, a button, which is just invoking the show time when they sort of click it. So you're getting away from having originally that sort of all that. I mean, initially we were sort of getting rid of that sort of section of it. So it doesn't look like too much you're getting rid of. You're perhaps getting rid of about 15 or 20 lines of sort of code. But that's just a start point about where we're sort of using it. So yeah, so when you run it, again, with a sort of a so you can run some of the sort of demos. This is the Ajax sort of basics one. You either got an alert box for it. Similar thing with an alert box. One with the click function embedded in JavaScript. The other one where you're invoking it direct from the HTML. And one where we do that bit about inserting it into the page for it. So we'll just go over that in a section. And the load one, which just says whatever the output's sending you back, just load here. This third one is what we moved on to in our JQuery last week. Sorry, our Ajax last week, where we needed to invoke something about where to put it. If you remember, one of the other things that we had with the GET request, and it was particularly a problem with JSP files, the browser tended to cache things. And what you had to do generally in the servlet was to tell the browser not to do caching. Otherwise, it sort of just brought up the old results all the time. And it's just another one of the options you can put in your Ajax, saying that, look, whenever you do this call to server time, when the result comes back, tell the browser not to cache them. And it will send the appropriate header files coming back to sort of do that. Whether it's a servlet or a JSP that you're invoking, coming back will have that, don't cache these away for it. Now that previous example had the on-click handler in the HTML, and that's fairly common with sort of Ajax libraries. When we looked at that HTML for it there, we were saying there, look, invoke that show time function, and that was a JavaScript function tucked away in your library to it. And whilst that's fairly common for many libraries, basically jQuery recommends you have a slightly different approach to doing this. It's a bit more sort of flexible for it. The jQuery syntax is to define a series of IDs for things like buttons, and then what you want to do with that. So you might sort of give your button an ID, and then say when they do click that, this is the handler that deals with it. For it. In general, you can sort of define any function you like. But if you have a look at how that's built inside the code, you could just define there your button in your HTML, and there's nothing there that shows that it's running JavaScript for it. There's nothing there that says that particular button is going to go off and do something. The only thing we've got is that we've tied an ID into that, time button 1. But in your JavaScript, you create this function handler that will set up a listener on that sort of button. So we define a function list, and there'll be many of these functions that you can put in, where it's saying here, look, you can define something that's attached to that name. And you put sort of any named ID, any sort of event for it. So there, that ID time button 1, and then the dot part after it identifies events linked to that particular object on in your HTML. So a button will have a click event. It'll have a mouse over event, on an on-clicked or on-release event. So you can detect a whole range of events for that, in this case a sort of time button. But you can take that for any of the objects that you've got. So as they roll over, say a data input field, it pops up with a help message. Or as they do a key press, then it goes away and brings back a list of available choices. That sort of idea. So the new thing there, the recommended approach, as I say, is to define this list of functions attached to IDs inside your sort of HTML. It doesn't really look any different to your user when they're running it. They're still sort of running that sort of basic function, but it's separating out this sort of purely display approach from the actual code that's running. And it means that all your code is in a much more easily manageable location. You've got it just in that JavaScript library that you're creating that's then invoking JQuery. But your HTML programs aren't necessarily going to sort of come across that sort of too much then for it. So it's exactly the same what happens when it runs, when we just sort of ran those sort of top two before. One was in line and one was as that sort of function. And if you do want to do this other thing that we did last week about inserting, similar approach. They begin with the $dot approach to it. You give an HTML function where you specify some selector and then set the HTML to be whatever string you like. So, for example, the ID of the result area. Set its HTML to be the text from the server for it. Or text based on that server result. It might be the exact data that the server sent you, just throw it straight in. Or it might be that you get it back, you do some changing around with it, and then you push it in for it. So it might just be based on that server result. Well, that just allows you to name it. Now, we did that before as well, but it got sort of fairly complicated. If you remember, we had the bit about extracting the data out and then calling up the bit that located that ID by saying document.find all tags with this, and then saying each HTML insert inside it. That just does it in one line to it. So again, it's just replacing potentially multiple lines of what we did before. I mean, there, because it's much better to obviously insert the things in a page for it rather than a pop-up. So you give it a div tag somewhere to put it into it. You get the data from the server, and initially we're just using a simple string that gets put into it there, but you can just say, like we've got here with the target, and set its HTML to be whatever data you got from the server. It makes it a lot simpler to sort of work with. So we start to, again, sort of build up with it when we are perhaps sort of invoking an address and a result region. You've got this insert Ajax result. We had our own function to do this last week, written in JavaScript. This week we're using JQuery to do it. So given a particular address that you're going to go off and get the data from, and a particular region where you want the result putting in, you can say, okay, go off to that, do our Ajax call with this URL, and when you come back, the function that I want you to do is insert text. And that's a bit to insert the text. You supply the text that you've just come back with, and the result region that's just flowing through from the original call. And then, okay, for this text, put it into this result region. So you just give $, the ID of the region to it, .html is that. Saves you again, just writing that. Now, we were building up those sorts of things anyway in those Ajax utils libraries. And you could sort of do it still that way. You don't need to use jQuery. You can build up your own JavaScript libraries and sort of go off down that. But you've got the problem of, well, for one, making sure those libraries are actually working correctly. You've got to write them in the first place. And then every time you sort of want a little bit extra, you've got to add another library to it. It becomes unique, perhaps, to your own little coding kit. and if you move to another organisation, you find that, oh no, actually we did things slightly differently here. If we can all use a sort of common library, you get the you've got a lot more transferable code to sort of work with. So in this case, sort of redoing that time one there. Again, nothing really there that indicates that you're running any JavaScript to it. We've just attached a couple of IDs into things. So we've got an H2 with an ID in it that's got no actual sort of text in it. But the time button 2 is our the ID of the button. So we're saying in the function list, the on-click handler for time button 2 is showtime2. We say, okay, go over to showtime.jsp and put the result in that particular region. And we get that final example to sort of be working with. So that's the sort of basics of it. There's a final one here with this load function that basically says, do it all in one. It's even sort of simpler, rather than having perhaps even sort of 3 lines of functions like that, or a sort of bit extra. You could just say, into this region, can you just load the results of that URL? If you know that URL